All right, here we are, day 2. Welcome to our first podcast or first episode, Be the Good. I want to start by saying this very clearly. This show is not entertainment. It's not gossip, and it's not a game. It's about power, abuse, and a long trail of people who have never truly been held to account. When people hear the name Jeffrey Epstein, many think of a single man, a single monster, a single case neatly wrapped up when he died in a jail cell. But if you've looked even briefly at these documents, the court filings, the flight logs, and now the redacted files, you know this was never just about one man. It was a network, a system, a web of silence, money, and influence wrapped around some of the most powerful people in the world. And yet, when you look at how few of those people have faced any real consequences, you can't help but feel something is deeply wrong. This podcast is my attempt to sit with that feeling, to name it, and to follow it wherever it leads. For years, survivors spoke up and were ignored, minimized, or treated as a nuisance, a problem to be managed, rather than human beings whose lives were shattered. The legal system had chance after chance to step in, and instead it didn't. Prosecutors backed off. Deals were cut behind closed doors. Judges signed off on arrangements that insulated the wealth and the well-connected. And now, with the release of redacted files, we see the outlines of the story that so many in power would prefer to keep buried. Names are partially visible, black bars covering key details, hints of relationships and meetings and trips that never get fully explained. You don't have to be a conspiracy theorist to see that something here doesn't quite add up. You just have to be honest. In those blacked out paragraphs is a very simple truth. Accountability has not reached everyone it should have. Some of the people who had access, control, influence, people who were physically present or who facilitated access are still giving speeches, still making deals, still sitting on boards, still being treated as respectable figures. Meanwhile, the survivors are the ones left holding the trauma. This show is for anyone who has looked at this case and felt that gnawing sense of injustice. For anyone who has asked, how is it possible that something this big, this organized, this well documented, resulted in so little accountability for so many people? Each week, we're going to slow down and look at what we actually know. We're going to talk about the redacted files, what they show, what they hide, and what their existence says about how power protects itself. We will explore the names that appear, the roles people allegedly played, the patterns that repeat themselves over and over, patterns of grooming, enabling, discrediting, and above all, protecting the powerful. We're going to talk about why cases like this are so hard to prosecute, why so many people seem to slip away untouched, unscathed, and why the justice system seems to have one face for ordinary people and a very different one for those with wealth, celebrity, and connections. And we're going to do it with seriousness and respect, especially for the people who have lived through this, whose lives have been broken and reshaped by abuse that never should have happened. I want to be very clear about something from the start. I am not here to play judge and jury. I'm not here to invent stories about anyone. I'm here to ask questions the system has been unwilling or unable to answer. I'm here to look at what is on record and to point out where the record has been twisted, obscured, or redacted beyond recognition. We will look at how a man already convicted of sex offenses still moved in elite circles. How so many people around him claimed they didn't know what was happening. How deals were arranged that prioritized reputation over justice. How the language of settlements and confidentiality has been used to quietly shut doors on the truth. We will also talk about what it means at a deeper level when a society allows this, what it says about who is believed and who is dismissed, about whose pain matters and whose can be negotiated away, about how institutions meant to protect the vulnerable can be bent to serve the powerful instead. You might be listening to this because you already suspect that the full story has never been told. You might be angry. You might be exhausted by how quickly the headlines have moved on. You might be someone who has experienced abuse in a very different context and recognizes the same patterns in this case. The disbelief, the gaslighting, the quiet, suffocating pressure to just move on. If that's you, I want you to know that you're not imagining it. The way this case has been handled, the secrecy, the delays, the redactions, the narrow focus on one central figure who is now dead, while so many others stand in the shadows. That's not normal. It may be common, but it's not right, and it's not normal. Sorry, fire alarm. I'm going to pause it. Sorry about that, guys. It may be common, but it's not normal, and it's not justice. Oi, oi. Let's try this again. Over the course of this series, Over the course of this series, we'll take time to walk through key moments in the timeline that thankfully, I think nobody is really watching this. Otherwise, it would be a complete and utter disaster. Let's try this again. Over the course of this series, we'll take time to walk through key moments in the timeline that show how many opportunities there were to stop this earlier. We're going to examine the language used in legal documents and public statements that downplayed or obscured what was really happening. We're going to highlight the courage of the survivors who spoke out and continue to speak out, often at enormous personal cost. And we're going to explore how the people and institutions that failed them have, in many cases, carried on with little or no consequence. We're also going to talk about the emotional weight of following a story like this. It can be easy to get numb, to treat it as just one more scandal. I don't want us to do that. I want us to hold on to the reality that behind every line in those documents, behind every blacked out name, There are human beings whose lives were changed forever. As you listen, I don't want you to simply absorb information. I want you to question along with me. Ask yourself, what would justice actually look like here? What would accountability mean? Not just for Epstein, but for everyone who facilitated, enabled, or turned a blind eye. What does it say about our system that people this powerful could feel this untouchable for so long? And what would have to change so that something like this isn't possible in the first place or ever again? These are not easy questions, and there won't always be neat answers, but staying with them is part of refusing to let this story be rewritten as an unfortunate chapter that we can now close. There's another layer to all of this: the way we, as the public, are managed, the way information trickles out, the way certain names get amplified and others never seem to make it into headlines at all, the way redactions, legal technicalities, and settlements shape what we're allowed to know. Part of what we'll do in this series is pull back and ask, who benefits from the way this story is being told? Who benefits from the way it's being forgotten? And what does it mean when a case that reveals such deep rot at the top of our society gets slowly filed away as yesterday's news? Because if someone can move in the highest circles of power while allegedly committing unspeakable acts for years, for decades, and most of the people around him face no serious consequences, that's not just a story about one predator. It's a story about us, about what we tolerate, and what we allow to be done in our name under the banner of respectability, philanthropy, and success. Before we go any further, I want to set an intention for this podcast. My intention is to center truth over comfort, to center survivors' experiences over reputations, to center accountability over deference to power. That means we will handle the subject with great care. We won't sensationalize trauma. We won't treat survivors' pain as a plot device. But we also won't soften or sanitize what happened to make anyone feel better about the system we currently live in. If, at times, this is hard to listen to, that's because it should be. Injustice should disturb us, all of us. Lack of accountability should bother us to our core. The fact that so many people appear to have walked away untouched should haunt us, at least for a little while. In this opening episode, we're going to lay the groundwork, how we got here, what the redacted files represent, and why they matter so much for the bigger question of accountability. In future episodes, we'll go deeper into specific people, documents, patterns, and failures. If you're still here, it's because you're willing to look at something most people would rather ignore. And I'm grateful you're choosing to spend this time listening, thinking, and questioning. My hope is that together we can create a space where the truth isn't pushed to the margins just because it's uncomfortable for the powerful. This is Be the Good, and I'm Ashley Livingstone. And this is the start of a conversation the world has tried very hard not to have for a very long time. Let's begin together.